the edge of a tall field of grass. You can't really see what's inside of it. And then someone comes out of it, he's all busted up, he's injured, he's damaged, and he's like, hey man, there's a minefield out there, but I've been through it. I can't take you all the way through, but I can tell you some certain areas to avoid. And I'll show you the one that can take you all the way, the rest of the way through the minefield. I've stepped on some pretty serious mines in my life, and I can tell you how to avoid some of them. While I cannot get you all the way through the minefield, I'm about to tell you about the one who can. The purpose of this speech is to inform you of the reality of the existence of sin and its consequences, and to persuade you that following Jesus is better than following the desires of your own heart, so that, God willing, even one of you might be dissuaded from walking the path that I did. By a show of hands, how many of you are 18 years old or within a few years of it? There's most of the class. Around 12 years ago, I also was 18 and just had arrived at college at Gainesville for the first time. God called me back then, and I rejected him because I wanted to follow the desires of my own heart and experience all the debauchery I thought college life could offer me. Back then, I did not have a criminal record and did not yet understand the slavery of addiction. If you would have told me then what I would go through for the next decade as a result of my wrong choices, I probably would have not have believed you. But this is exactly why I feel unqualified to appeal to you today. I was sitting right where you are 12 years ago, and when I was your age, and I know where the road of self-will leads. I would hardly wish what I've gone through on my worst enemy. I have nothing to gain from this. I'm not selling anything, and I won't be passing around a basket to collect money. Indeed, I risk my likability in presenting this topic. Yet if even one seed is planted and one heart is moved to seek God, and one person is averted from the suffering I endured as a result of my wrong choices, I would gladly endure the anxiety of giving this speech 100 times over. Whatever comes of this, I want to always glorify God for the amazing things He's done in my life. And please know that this is not about some religion. It's about starting a personal relationship with the loving God who created you. First, I'm going to relate 2 examples that display the very real consequences of sin. One from an interview that Ted Bundy did with the psychologist Dr. James Dobson the day before he was executed, and the others from my own personal experience. Then I'm going to talk about the moral decline in our country and the problem of sin in general. Next, I'm going to reveal the solution to the problem of sin as described in the Bible. And last, I'm going to encourage you to seek God as the only one who can ever truly satisfy your soul and the blessings of doing so. Let's begin with an article I found on a Pure Intimacy website, which tries to help people recover from addiction to pornography and sexual brokenness. According to the article titled Fatal Addiction, Ted Bundy's Final Interview, the day before he was executed on January 24th, 1989, Ted Bundy described how pornography contributed to him eventually becoming a murderer. Now, to be fair, Ted did not directly blame pornography for his actions, but in his own words, and I quote, "The issue is how this kind of literature contributed and helped mold and shape the kinds of violent behavior." Bundy was first described how he first found softcore pornography as a boy of 12 or 13, and would eventually come across more graphic materials, including like detective novels back then. To quote Bundy again, "The most damaging kind of pornography, and I'm talking from hard, real, personal experience, is that involves violence and sexual violence. The wedding of those two forces, as I know only too well, brings about behavior that is too terrible to describe." Eventually, Bundy reached a tipping point where the pornography was no longer enough and he had to take his fantasy to reality. He described this as, and I quote again, "The sensation of reaching that point where I knew I couldn't control it anymore. The barriers I had learned as a child were not enough to hold me back from seeking out and harming somebody." I feel fairly certain that Ted Bundy didn't just wake up one morning and decide to become a serial killer. It is clear from this example how sin takes you captive and can lead you further and further to the depths of depravity. Next, I'll describe this bondage from my own personal experience with pornography. I was first exposed to pornography around the same age and experienced for myself how deceptively it takes you captive. It started off innocently enough. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I justified it because I figured all teenage boys either did or would view pornography if given the chance. The ease of finding free pornography on the internet fueled my growing addiction. Over time, I had to seek out pornography that was more and more graphic to try to grasp that sense of fleeting satisfaction. While by the grace of God, I didn't get so far as to rape or kill anybody, I can personally attest that Bundy's experience was not unique. This is the thing of sin in general. It promises so much, promises freedom, while it takes you captive. I have an analogy, a couple little pictures here. This is how sin presents itself. It's cute, right? Seems harmless. this is what you actually get. It seems harmless, but then once it got you in its grasp, I speak from my own experience, it's not the face that it shows. Pornography is just the example I'm using in this particular case. This dilemma is described in the Bible in Romans 6:16, which reads basically, and I'm not quoting here, but from my own memory, to whom you present yourselves slaves to obey, you are that one slaves whom you obey, whether of sin leading to death or of obedience leading to righteousness. Next, let's move on to the greater problem, the decline of morals in our society at large, and the problem of sin. The morals of our great country have been steadily declining for years as more and more people are deceived and trapped by sin. Revelation 12:9 describes the devil as one who goes around deceiving the whole world. According to an online article from the Huffington Post, Gallup's annual Values and Beliefs Survey revealed that Americans are overwhelmingly negative about the future of moral values in the United States, with 73% believing that moral values are deteriorating and are likely to continue getting worse. According to a different article from ABC News, pornography has grown into a $10 billion business, bigger than the NFL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball combined. Former Surgeon General C. Everett Koop is quoted in this article as saying, "We have an industry that is making billions of dollars a year, is spreading to cable television and to the internet, and yet their employees are considered to be throwaway people." I infer that one of the many factors contributing to the decline of morals in this country is the unbridled lust for money, which is a cause of many different types of evil. Probably most of you have heard the saying, money is the root of all evil. It doesn't read exactly like that. It's from 1 Timothy 6:10. The New King James says, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." We are actually born with bodies inherent with desires that, if we follow them, will lead us to destruction. I've experienced this myself. It says Romans 3:23, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." Like I said, I've experienced the result of following the desires of my own heart and the destruction that led me down. So that if part of the problem is that we are born into bodies with a sinful nature, one may legitimately ask, how a loving God, therefore if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I've experienced this myself. I described, I think most of you in this room saw my introductory speech. I was in bondage to alcohol, and how Jesus delivered me from that. Like I can say, I've been through a lot of different places in my life, and I wouldn't be alive and sober today except for the grace of God and the blood of Jesus. Last, I also want to talk to you about the blessedness of seeking God. The Bible is full of examples of the blessedness of those who seek the Lord. The psalmist describes the man who delights and meditates on the law of the Lord in Psalm 1:3, as you can see in this little picture. I know the caption is a little hard to read with the white. A tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. Proverbs 10:22 reads, "The blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." I will personally attest to how much my life has improved since the Lord delivered me from my bondage to sin, alcohol, other things as well. It is true I still face many hardships in this life, but my hope is in the next. John 16:33, Jesus told his disciples, "In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." Revelation 21:4 reads as far as the promises of when God comes to create the new heavens and the new earth. "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." Now that you've heard the solution, let's do a quick recap. In conclusion, I provided two examples of how the bondage of sin leads further and further down into the depths of depravity. One from the serial killer Ted Bundy, and the other from my own personal experience. Next, I discussed the moral decline of our country and the problem of sin in general. Then I shared the solution to the problem, Jesus Christ. And last, I recounted the many blessings of following Jesus, to which I will personally testify. Keep in mind, I have nothing to gain from this except the joy of helping another person. And truly, I believe God put me on this earth both to love Him and to love others. And the best way I know how to love others is to point them to the one who created them and then gave Himself for them, so that through His sacrifice they may live with Him forever one day. 1 Corinthians 2:9 reads, "But as it is written, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love Him." I'll recap one more time. I've been to jail probably 6 or 7 different times. I spent a total of about 11 months of my life in jail. I spent another about 11 months of my life in rehab, inpatient rehab. I've been Baker-acted over 10 times, 5 suicide attempts. I've been through a lot of tragedy in my life as a result of my choices. The only way I feel my life could have been more tragic is if I would have been good or fine by the standards of the world and would have never realized the great need I have for God. Jesus said in Revelation 3:20, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and dine with him, and he with me." The most important question of your life is, will you open the door?